There we go.
Okay, so what we want to do right now is get all of our ingredients in place. In the kitchen, we call that mise en place. It means everything in its place. So in your kit, you're going to have some little paper boats, look like a little hot dog boat. You should have 4 of those. So um, you also have some toppings, little bags of toppings. There's sprinkles, toasted coconut, some ginger snaps, and some espresso powder. So go ahead and take your 4 boats and pour those items into each one of the boats. So you have 4 little topping stations that we're going to use later on when we make our truffles. Okay, so first up, I'm going to teach you guys to make chocolate ganache. Ganache is an emulsion of chocolate and some kind of fat. In this case today, we're going to be using coconut cream, which also came in your kit. You should have your baggie of chocolate pieces. This is a 54% semi-sweet chocolate, dark chocolate. So this is not Toll House morsels, and I don't recommend using something like that in this case. Ganache is going to be made with just 2 ingredients. It's going to be made with our cream and our chocolate. So we really want to have very good quality ingredients to use. Don't focus so much if you want to do this later at home, and I hope you will. Don't focus so much on looking for chips, but rather get a really nice chocolate bar that you enjoy the flavor of and chop it up into small pieces to make some more truffles. Um, okay, so go ahead and take a microwave safe bowl and pour in your chocolate pieces. And now we have our coconut cream. I'm going to open my can. A little trick, if you open the top of the can, you'll find when you're opening it that there's some liquid part inside, but then there's a big kind of section of solid coconut cream. So the way to get this out easily is just to go ahead and flip it over, and then you can just put a little, pierce the bottom a little bit, and if there's some coconut cream left in there, it'll just slide right out. So you don't have to dig around with a spoon. Now, the coconut cream we have here is about 2 times the amount we actually need to make our ganache. So we're going to heat up the whole thing just because it's a small amount and it's hard to do half of it. But when we're ready to pour it over our chocolate, we're only going to use half. Okay, first thing I want you guys to do right now is to taste your chocolate. Very important, right? Find out what your ingredient tastes like. So go ahead and take a couple of the chips and taste them. Like I said, this is a semi-sweet or 54% dark chocolate, a very classic European style. Now, I said there's only 2 ingredients in here, but we're going to do a little trick. I asked you to also have some salt available, either sea salt or table salt, whatever you have. And you're going to use a little bit of the espresso powder that we're going to use later for our topping. And we're going to take a small pinch of each. Little pinch of espresso powder. I'm going to put it right into my bowl of chocolate. And I'm going to take a little pinch of sea salt. And
Hey,
I'm going to
Ronnie.
put that, yes.
There's a question in the chat. It says,
Okay.
if you're doing this in the future, would a higher percentage of dark chocolate, like 70%, be okay? That's from Jason.
Absolutely. Good question. You could really use any chocolate you want. If you like a milk chocolate, use milk chocolate. If you want a higher percentage chocolate, 70% is often what we use, but for the classes, we like to use a semi-sweet just so it's more accessible for everyone. But absolutely, you should use whatever chocolate you enjoy the flavor of, because that's what's going to provide the taste and the enjoyment of your finished truffle. So good question. Okay, so now I've put a pinch of sea salt and a pinch of espresso powder into my chocolate. Is there anyone here who is not using a microwave to heat the cream? Anyone who's using a stove top? Okay, so if you need to use a stove top, go ahead and get your cream on there right now. You need to heat that up. The only mistake you can really make when you're making ganache is to not have the cream hot enough. It needs to be ripping hot, like almost boiling, before it's going to be effective in creating the emulsion. When you're making an emulsion, you're kind of forcing 2 things that don't want to live together to go together. If you've ever made your own salad dressing, you can pour some oil into a container and then a little vinegar. The vinegar kind of floats on top and it really doesn't look like much. And then you kind of shake it up a lot. And what happens? Those 2 things go together and they create a third thing. It becomes opaque, it becomes thick. So a similar transformation is going to happen as we make our chocolate ganache. And in order for that to really be effective, you need to have the cream very hot. So for those of you who are using a microwave, go ahead and put your cream in the microwave and put it on for about 1.5 to 2 minutes on high power. Remember, we're only going to pour half of this over our chocolate, okay?
So Ronnie, question, is it, are we pouring the coconut over the truffles, the larger one, or is it the semi-sweet chocolate chips?
So right now, the only chocolate you should have out on your table is the chocolate chip pieces that are in your microwave safe bowl. Yeah.
Okay.
The other box is off to the side. That's door number 2. You know when they do that Food Network swap out, right? You make the cake, you put it in the oven, and it's done. That's kind of what that box is about, because those ganache balls were made in advance so that they're ready to work with.
Got it.
Yep. But this way you get the whole experience, because this is the beginning of the process. It's just we already did it for you on the blanks that are in the box. So you'll get to have the whole experience. All right, so we're heating up our cream. Again, when you take it out of the microwave, I want to see it boiling practically, right? Because it's got to be very hot in order for us to effectively build the emulsion. How's yours doing on the stove top there?
Boiling.
It's boiling.
Heat it up. Oh, good. Great. Okay. So remember, you're only going to use about half of it. You can go ahead and pour that over your chips. And if everyone else has their cream coming out of the microwave nice and hot and boiling. Yeah, mine's bubbling away, so I'm going to go ahead and go for it. So I'm going to pour about half of it, or about 1/3 of a cup, over the 6 ounces of chocolate. And remember, you do have a recipe here on your insert that tells you, the amount and all that stuff. So you're good with that. And you can go ahead and begin stirring. As soon as you pour the cream over, you can begin to stir. Again, I can't really see my image, so I don't know if you're able to see what I'm holding up, but this is my bowl. You can see at first it looks a little bit messy, like I'm making some sloppy chocolate milk. But as I continue to stir, and as you continue to stir, what's going to happen is the ganache is going to begin to form, that emulsion is going to begin to form, and it's going to become thick, going to become darker and very shiny. It's also going to kind of look like chocolate pudding. So that's what we're looking for, is that kind of consistency. And as you can see, now mine is pretty much completely transformed, and I have a really beautiful dark chocolate ganache developing. And that, my friends, is really the whole process. Folks are often very intimidated by making chocolate ganache, but it is a pretty simple process once you get the hang of it. Now, the reason I had you taste your chocolate in the beginning, besides the fact that I wanted you to have a little taste of chocolate, is when we put in our pinch of espresso and our pinch of sea salt, that's a little trick that you can use anytime you're working with chocolate. It works if you're making brownies. It works if you're making a chocolate cake or chocolate frosting. And what it does is it just is kind of a supporting character, if you will, to enhance the flavor of your chocolate. So once you have your ganache made and your emulsion is finished, I want you to actually go ahead and taste it and see if you can taste the difference that the addition of that little bit of espresso and sea salt made.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to taste the salt or the espresso, then you put too much. You just want to just taste like a little bit of an enhanced flavor of your chocolate. Okay. So I'm not sure how you want to handle it from here. This is the step of making the ganache, and then we're going to go ahead and transfer over to beginning to roll the truffles and stuff. So do you want to take your break here and bring in your other
let's go back to what we're going to do now is just do a few use cases around the power of RHEL with smart management. And Matt, do you want to go ahead and share your screen? And we have an actual demo system that we're going to walk through a few things that may be of interest. Anybody have any particular things that they wanted to dive deeper in, just let us know. But otherwise, Matt, why don't you go ahead and share your screen?
All right, thanks, Mike. So, where to start with satellite? Back when I was a sysadmin, one of the things that I absolutely hated was running updates, whether it was on one system or multiple system, and getting end users to run updates, whether it's the web team to update their web servers or users updating their laptops, is also incredibly Sisyphean task. And that's where satellite and insights can come into play in a lot of ways. We're going to start by looking at insights here, which is a dashboard. You can reach it by going to console.redhat.com, and you will have your drop down for insights. And if you have any Red Hat subscriptions, they should already be brought in. So you can go there today and see your stuff. It comes with your subscriptions. And this is a good dashboard. You can get in here, you can see your systems. This is what I've got in my demo environment as it loads. And you'll see some names here. I've got my satellite system, my AAP, some RHEL devices set up for demos.
So, Matt, is there anything that you have to load on your system for this to be up in the portal?
You do have to enable insights. Okay. That should come standard though.
Okay.
With a standard installation of RHEL. As long as you're subscribed, it should be pushing. And so from here, I can get a high-level overview of my environment, right? So here I can look at my patch and I can look at advisories. I see a whole bunch of CVEs, and what makes this really great is I can pull them out of here without having to go into satellite, without having to hit a VPN or anything like that. Anywhere in the world, I can go to my console, look at insights, and if somebody needs to know, like security's asking me what this patch means or what this update means, I can go straight into advisories. I can pull up the CVE, and I can get all of this information out to them extremely quickly. I can come down into my vulnerabilities. I can get reports. I can get a little bit deeper about my CVEs here, and I can look at all the ones. I can do by publish date. I can do by severity. One of the other benefits is I can look at my compliance, and I can look at compliance reports. When you're running SCAT policies coming out of satellite, I can look at all of these policies. I can see what systems are affected, what their compliance threshold is, and I can generate reports out of all of this as well. Another large benefit is I can have drift comparisons and baselines. Not now, thank you.
The other benefit, quick.
Go ahead.
The other benefit too is you can give a read-only view to your security compliance department so that they can actually go in and view that without bugging you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of things that Insights gets, and really giving you a 5 to 10 minute tour, while it looks really cool, doesn't always do it justice. You know, when we talk about things like baselines, you can have multiple baselines for all across your different systems. We've got just a gold here, but you know, if you want your web servers and then your database servers all set up with different baselines and how they need to look, you can build all of that out, and you can run comparisons against them, right? So I'm just going to add a couple of systems. We're going to look at this one here and this one here. And we're just going to get a quick little view of what a comparison could look like, right? So you see a whole bunch of stuff is red and they're not fully set up with our baseline. Another benefit is you can roll back a system, or you can look at historical systems and see when it was last compliant, how it's not compliant, what's different between two systems. You can compare it against itself. So if that's something that your systems are constantly asking for, like what changed, or when did this change, or how did it get out of compliance, you have the ability to dive in and take a look at what those can really do. And then the last thing about this particular portal here, before we start looking at satellite itself, is the value of the image builder. And when we start talking about what image builder is and what it does, really this just helps you if you're bringing your own. This can help you build your image, whether you want a QCal, a bare metal ISO, VMDK. Right now it's got RHEL 8 and RHEL 9. And you just go in and you can, we're going to say Microsoft Azure, right? And then we're going to hit next. And we can give it a tenant GUID. Azure probably wasn't a great one, but you can put in your subscription ID, your resource group. You can even get all the way down into the registration of the system configuration with different files and how you want that partitioned out, any kind of packages. And then you name your image, and now you've got your image to push up to the cloud. You don't have to spin up a new system. You don't have to clone that system. It makes that a lot more streamlined. And then again, it just lives right here. So anytime you need to download it, you can just go to Insights, hit the download, and pull it down.
One comment on that, Matt, is that
Sure.
Bring your own subscriptions to your cloud is actually more economical, and then you also get to use your satellite hub, or what's it called, Matt?
Your Insights? Your subscriptions?
No, like if you use a capsule, if you use a satellite capsule in the cloud, basically, then you can use your satellite to maintain those images in your whatever cloud you're in as well. So there's a great benefit to having that instead of using the marketplace realm.
Absolutely. And so now we're going to kick it over to the workhorse of the whole setup, and that's satellite itself. And within satellite, there's a lot of bells and whistles. Again, we don't have time to cover all of them tonight. So what we're going to focus on, I think we're going to focus on some use cases. And I think one of the biggest use cases that we get, or that we see a lot in a lot of people's entry to satellite, is patch management. You've got 25, 75, 250 rail systems out there, and you need to maintain them in some fashion. And you want to keep all of your subscriptions straight. You want to keep your licenses straight. And that's really one of the big benefits, or probably the core benefit of satellite, and where everything else jumps off from. So here you can see some subscriptions. We don't have a whole lot built out. We've got a SKU. We've got Ansible automation platform. And then what you can do with those, right? So we've got our products here that we can build out, and you can go in and you can tell it specifically what type of packages you want. Once you have decided what packages you want, you can go down into your lifecycle environments, and you can break things up into development, production, test, stage, dev, and you can build out multiple different sets of environments with different lifecycle paths, right? So you could have something specific for database, specific for web, specific for any other type of server that you may have in your environment. Most people only need just this one, and they break it up into 4. We have seen customers with 6 or 7 different paths, and where those come in is you then segment and you tell it, we're going to look at our content views here, and you tell it, right, so I'm just going to go into RHEL 8 demo, and I have version 1, and I've got, it only goes to the environments of library and development. And it's got a whole slew of different packages and errata, but I can go in here and I can tell it what Yum repositories it's going to hit. I can tell it what Yum content I want it to have, right? I can add them just like that. I can even add different file repositories. I can add third-party repositories like EPEL. And so how all of this ties in is that when I go over to my hosts and I look at this guy right here, he says, sorry, I'm on the wrong screen here. Let's go to my content hosts. There we go. That's the one I wanted. So I can look at my content hosts and I can say, hey, this guy has a security patch, but he doesn't have any bugs. And he's got some package updates, and I can see what his OS is. I can see what life cycle he's in, what his content view is. And then the guy that we were just looking at, well, this server's got 24 security patches. And even from this screen, right, I could click them all, which I don't want to do, right? I've got Ansible automation platform in here. I've got satellite in here. I don't want to hit them all, but I want to hit this one right here, right? And I want to run this security update. I can do it all directly from here. Apply selected, apply, and it's going to go through. At some point. There we go. Success. Patch applied. And then I can go right back to, where did that go? Nope, back to my content hosts here. And you'll see he no longer has that errata. From a larger scale, I can set up automation around all of these different erratas, when people are getting their updates, what update channels they're getting them from. You know, as you see here, we've got a 7.9, which the satellite doesn't belong in any environment, but you can have 6, you can have 7, you can have 8, you can have 9, all in your environment, getting different update pads, syncing across different schedules and running those automations. And you can manage all of that from a single platform. And then you can monitor all of that from a higher level of up here, going all the way back to insights. And insights will even tell you about remediations for a system, and it will develop Ansible playbooks for you when available, going down into a system that has been broken, and you can just go into here, you select your server that needs it, and where did it go? Click that, and we click remediate, and it'll create your playbook just like that. You go through the rest of the steps, and it'll give you one to download.
I think the real power, Matt, what you just described, is when you take insights and you combine it with satellite and layer in Ansible automation platform, and you tie all those together, and that's really where you gain efficiencies, because you're taking out the human error, you're speeding things up, the redundant tasks. So we see that quite a bit, and even our more advanced customers that are implementing this with Ansible automation as well to gain more efficiencies.
Absolutely. Coming out of satellite, as you mentioned, Ansible Tower, going back into Ansible automation platform, you can import your satellite inventory as smart inventories into the automation platform. You can also use automation platform to spin up new hosts, and with playbooks, you can directly register them into satellite.
Very good. All right, so is now a good time to go back to Ronnie Sue to finish up our chocolate truffle or ganache?
Most definitely.
Okay.
Great. All right, so welcome back, everybody. All right, so as I said before, we made our chocolate ganache, and obviously it's a little bit too liquid right now for us to roll these into truffle shapes. So this is where our special envelope comes in. You've got the silver envelope there, and inside you'll find the white chocolate box wrapped in a little bit of saran wrap. So you can unwrap that, take off the lid, and inside you'll find a gold tray filled with 12 chocolate truffle blanks. So just take the tray out, the gold tray out, and put that white box off to the side so that it doesn't get schmutzed up with chocolate, because now we're going to get a little down and dirty. You can go ahead and put your gloves on.
Hence the gloves.
Yes, time for the gloves. Exactly. Gloves are off, but gloves are on. Okay. Now you'll see when you look at the little truffle blanks, what we did was we made ganache just like we made together. And then we have a piping bag that we put it into, and we have a special silicone mat and we pipe the warm ganache into the silicone molds, and it makes these little round balls. So it makes it very easy for you as the students to go ahead and roll the ganache balls into truffles. So you'll see if you take one out and pick it up, they're all a little bit different. Some of them have a little ridge around the top where they sat against the mold. Some of them might have a peaked top, or some of them might be completely flat on top. What you're going to do now is just take that truffle, and if it's flat, you're going to push a little bit of the material up from the side. These are very malleable, almost like Play-Doh might be, right? Because they're nice and set up. And then once you have it more rounded on the top, you're going to take your 2 cupped palms like this, and you're going to roll the truffle for a few moments. And now 2 things are going to happen while you're doing this. Number 1, if there are ridges in the truffle or that little kind of hat that it was wearing, you're going to press those out. And the other thing that's going to happen is you're going to get your hands on your palms just a little bit like this, and that means the outside of that chocolate ganache is melting slightly, and that's exactly what we want to see happen. Because now we have our mise en place, right? We have our 4 little boats with the different toppings. I'm going to take my chocolate truffle that I've rolled, and I'm going to put it into my sprinkles, and I'm literally rolling this with 1 finger. So you can see I'm not applying any pressure, just rolling it in the sprinkles, and as long as my outer layer of ganache is melted slightly, it's going to stick really nicely. And now you can see I have a really nice looking chocolate sprinkled truffle.
There we go.
Yeah. So you guys are going to actually roll all 12 of your truffles, and you can use any of the toppings you want. If anybody decided to get creative and get some additional toppings out of their pantry, extra credit for you. If not, just go ahead and use these 4. So they're sprinkles, toasted coconut, some ginger snap, crushed ginger snap cookies, and some espresso powder.
I was looking at your list, and you had pretzels, potato chips.
Yeah, there's a lot of things.
Salty, contrast.
Yeah, a lot of things you can kind of use. Sometimes folks like to do that kind of sweet and salty vibe. So you can take the plantain chips and buzz them up in a spice grinder and use that for a topping. Or sometimes if you have kids involved and they have like a favorite breakfast cereal, you can kind of crush that, or even let them put that into a Ziploc bag and roll it with a rolling pin so they feel involved, and crush up the breakfast cereal and use that. So while you guys are rolling your truffles, I'm going to jump back to what we were doing earlier, right, with our chocolate ganache, because there's a lot of stuff you can do with chocolate ganache when it's in this liquid form. So I don't want you to miss out on those fun details, because this is really great stuff. If you've ever seen, like on Instagram or something like that, where you see that kind of pour over cake where they're pouring the chocolate kind of slow and sexy over the top and it's flowing down the side, that's also ganache, but ganache is kind of a range. Like you could put more or less liquid or cream into it. And you could make it more fluid or less fluid. We did kind of a medium firmness. Now what you're going to do with the ganache that you made tonight, you can put it into a container and seal it, or just put a piece of plastic wrap over the bowl you made it in. And that can stay in your refrigerator for up to 2 weeks. But you're going to want to put that in the refrigerator tonight after class. It's going to set up, and tomorrow it's going to be firm, just like these truffle blanks that you're working with now. So it's going to be firm like that. And in order to make more truffles, which I hope you'll want to do with your homework, you just take a spoon and scoop it out, or a melon baller and scoop it out, and then you can just roll it with your hands again to make the truffle shape. All right, but what can we do with it in its current state? So I want to show you a few tricks that are really fun. And this is a recipe. You can see it took us, about 1.5 minutes to make our ganache, right? It's very quick. So this is something you can do pretty much anytime you want to have some fun and impress some guests or friends and family. I like to kind of up my ice cream sundae game, and I can put a couple of scoops of ice cream into a bowl and then take some warm ganache and pour over it. And what's going to happen, because that ice cream is very cold compared to the warm ganache, it's going to set up quickly into almost like a fudgy magic shell situation, if you will. So before that sets up, you could sprinkle on some toasted nuts or something like that. And, it really makes for a delicious and fun presentation. Another thing you can do with the ganache is if you had made, let's say, a tray of brownies earlier in the day and let that cool, you could take some ganache like this and you can pour it right over your tray of brownies, kind of tap it and level it a little bit. Now, once you let this set up for about 45 minutes to an hour at room temperature, that's going to dry to the touch. So you could touch that and it's not going to come away, but it will still remain beautiful and shiny, just like it looks in the bowl right now. So that's kind of a nice way to dress up and gild the lily on a tray of brownies. I love to use it for doing cupcakes. So I have a little mini cupcake here that I'm going to demonstrate for you how we do that while you guys are rolling your truffles. So if I have a cupcake, I just hold it by the paper like this. And then I'm going to take my bowl of ganache and I'm just dunking the cupcake right in, and I'm just giving it a little twist as I pull it out. And then you can see I have a really pretty shiny frosting for my cupcake that's a little bit of an upgrade perhaps from the standard buttercream. What's nice about this is, like I said, after about an hour, that's going to set up dry to the touch, but it's going to retain that pretty shiny top. Now, before it sets up, I can take some sprinkles and sprinkle on my little cupcake and kind of dress it up. And that makes for a really fun presentation and something a little different. If you're doing a layer cake and you want to add a little something to that, you could use the ganache for the middle of the layer cake, where you put the two layers together, and then just go ahead and use the classic buttercream around the outside. And that way you have a little surprise inside. All right. So I want to ask you all a question. Anybody here enjoy chocolate covered strawberries?
Yes.
Okay, I hear some yeses in the group. All right. It is a pretty fun thing, right? Chocolate covered strawberries are really popular and everyone seems to love them. However, there is a little problem with chocolate covered strawberries, right? My pet peeve with chocolate covered strawberries is if you get them right away and you eat them just as soon as they're dipped, delicious. I have no argument with that, right? But if you have some chocolate covered strawberries that were perhaps made yesterday, what happens? You go to take out one of these sexy looking chocolate covered strawberries, and what happened is it left a little pool of juice on the table, right? Because the berry starts to break down. And when the juice flows out, it starts to break down that crisp chocolate shell. You take a bite, and suddenly you're wearing it, right? Not so cool looking. So I'm going to propose to you a little alternative, and that is ganache dipped chocolate strawberries. So I've got a couple of strawberries here, and I'm going to dip them. In order to do it, all I'm really doing is I'm holding the strawberry by its leaves, right? Pretty simple. No special tools required. And I'm just taking it and I'm dipping it into my bowl of ganache again. I'm going to roll it around a little bit. I don't know if you can see this, but I want to leave a little bit of the red berry exposed, right, all around the top because that looks real pretty. And then I'm just setting it down on my parchment covered tray. Now, if you don't have parchment paper, that's fine. You can use wax paper, or you can even use the dull side of a piece of aluminum foil. Just put that out on the tray and lay your chocolate covered strawberries right on that. After about 45 minutes to an hour, those are going to set up dry to the touch again, but they're going to be that beautiful, shiny chocolate ganache. What I like about this is you can make these a day or two in advance and they're still going to hold nicely in the fridge and still be just as delicious. So that makes it actually something doable, you know, for a party or something like that where you don't have to worry about them disintegrating overnight. You can also set these up more quickly in the refrigerator. It will kind of give a little more of a dull appearance because of the moisture in the fridge, but you can set them up pretty quickly that way. Once you set that down on the paper, you want to leave it until it's fully set up. And then when you pick it up, it'll just peel away cleanly. I have one more little trick I want to show you that's one of my favorite things to do with ganache. Just going to the freezer. I call this a healthiest treat. And what I'm taking out. Yeah, maybe. So what I did earlier was I took a banana and I cut it in half. And I took a couple of popsicle sticks. If you don't have popsicle sticks, take a takeout chopstick or you know, a fork from takeout, something like that, and just put it on there. Put that in the freezer for a couple of hours, and it's gonna get kind of firm, almost like an ice cream consistency. So you can take this banana, you can dip it into your ganache. Now this is gonna set up fast because my banana is frozen, right, and the ganache is warm. So that's gonna set up pretty quickly. And before it does set up, I happen to have a little tray of chopped toasted walnuts here. So I'm going to put that in, roll it around, and there I have a beautiful little banana pop. I think any kid or adult might be pleased with that for a little snack. And it's pretty delicious. Even folks who are not banana people tend to enjoy it, I found in my classes, because it's almost like the consistency of an ice cream when you eat it. So that's a fun little healthiest treat to enjoy.
So I
How's
have a
everybody?
question for you.
Yeah,
Well,
sure.
I was just, I know we made the basic ganache, but I was curious about on the sheet that you sent that you the Quattro and the Grand Marnier. How
Hmm.
does that affect? I mean, I know from the liqueur standpoint, but I mean,
Hmm.
setting up and stuff.
Yeah. So it's almost as if you were my shill in the audience leading into my next thing. So well played, sir. That's what we're going to talk about next. So while you finish doing your truffles and finishing up your truffle blanks, I want to talk to you about how to make a flavored ganache, right? Because right now, you guys learned how to make a classic dark chocolate ganache, and that's good. You always need to know the basics. But suppose you want to have, you know, right now you're putting the flavors on from the outside, right? You're putting the ginger snaps and the espresso and the coconut. But what about if we want to flavor the ganache itself? That's like next level. So we're going to talk about that right now before we finish up. So I want you to understand how that can work and how you could create your own flavor profile. So that's what that little handout is about. So I'm going to bring over my little tray to talk about that now. I want to talk with you about how to make orange flavored ganache, because orange and chocolate is a real classic combination. Lots of folks really enjoy it. So it's a good one to kind of talk through and demonstrate about. If we wanted to cheat, we could go to the supermarket and we could buy a little bottle of chemicals that says orange flavoring, and we could put that into our chocolate. But that's not how we roll, right? We don't want to do that. We want to use actual orange elements so they can have a really delicious, authentic, and genuine orange flavor profile. So guess what we're going to start with? Some oranges, right? So we're going to get a couple of really nice navel oranges with a nice smooth skin. We're going to bring those home. Here in the US, all of our citrus fruit has a layer of wax on top for preserving it. So if you're going to use any type of citrus, whether it be for a twist in a cocktail or for zesting into some baked goods, you want to remove that wax first. So you can use something like this. This is a fruit and veggie wash, or you can just use some vinegar and water. But you really just want to get that off. And after you've cleaned it with that, rinse it and dry it, and then you're ready to actually zest it. It's good to do this for two reasons. Number one, the wax is going to kind of mute the flavor in your citrus oils. And number two, wax will often retain pesticides. And so you want to get rid of that as well. Okay, so we've got two nice oranges. They're nice and clean. First one, we're going to take a regular vegetable peeler, just like you might use to peel a potato. Okay, going to take that. We're going to cut some strips off our first orange. Now I want to show you this. I just cut this strip of orange. I don't know if you can see it well enough, but both sides of this are bright orange. There's no white on this, okay? The white remains on the orange. I don't want to take the pith off. I just want to use that really beautiful outer rind. So I'm taking my first orange and I'm going to peel it entirely. I'm going to end up with about 10 or 12 strips like this. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it into my cream. I'm going to cover that with something to protect it in the refrigerator, and then I'm going to put that into the refrigerator overnight. That's called a cold infusion. And what's going to happen is the oils from that orange rind are going to migrate out into the cream. And you can use dairy cream for this, by the way. We're using the coconut cream today just because logistically sending it in the mail, it's much easier for us to use something in a sealed container, but they can be substituted one-to-one. So you can totally use dairy cream instead of coconut cream if you want. So now we've got our 10 or 12 strips of rind in our cream overnight. That's going to marinate in the fridge, if you will. All right, fast forward 24 hours. We want to make our orange flavored truffles. We're going to take that flavored cream out of the refrigerator and we're going to strain that into a saucepan on the stove. Okay. You're going to take the remaining strips and you're going to squeeze them out, get all that flavor into the cream, and then you're going to discard these because they've given up all their flavor. They're done. Now you have a delicious flavored and scented cream. It's going to have a little slight orange color to it as well. But we still have our second orange in reserve. Here's what we're going to do with that. We're going to take one of these. This is a microplane grater. It has very tiny teeth on it. 15 years ago, if you were looking for one of these, you had to go to the hardware store or a woodworking shop because this is actually a wood rasp. But chefs got hold of this some years ago and said, holy moly, this is like the very best zester I've ever seen, right? And started zesting with it, and the rest is history. Now you can buy them at Bed Bath & Beyond and everywhere. So you can see here, I've just zested off. And again, I'm not taking any of the pith. I'm just taking that really fresh, vibrant zest from the outside. I'm zesting that whole second orange and I'm dumping it right into my saucepan with the cream. So now I have two layers of flavor. I have my flavored cream and I have some fresh zest that's going to really brighten that up. Next up, we're going to take some orange marmalade. This is a bitter orange marmalade. If you're looking for this in the market, you want to look for something that says Seville. Sometimes it might say British. You just want to have not a sweet kind of jam, but a really bitter orange marmalade. This one is made in France by Bon Maman. I don't know if you're familiar with this brand, but it's very good jam in general. And this one is a delicious bitter orange marmalade. As an aside, this company is, like I said, it's a family-run company in France, and they've been around for decades. And I recently learned that during World War II, they happened to shelter and save a lot of Jews from the Nazis. So rock on, they make great jam, and they are also social justice warriors, so we like them. All right, next up, someone mentioned Cointreau. What about this? Yeah, what's that going to do? So good question. If you're not adverse to some booze, we're going to take a little bit of Cointreau or, some other type of strongly flavored orange liqueur. I happen to like Cointreau. I think it's a little less sweet than some of the others. I'm going to add a little bit of that to our cream. Next up, we're going to take some orange bitters like we might use in a cocktail, and we're going to put a couple of dashes of orange bitters into our mix. Now, don't forget, now we have two naked oranges that are kicking around and we've got to use them somehow, right? So we're going to cut those in half and we're going to juice them into a different saucepan, not to the one with the cream, but a second saucepan on our stove. We're going to juice both oranges in there. We're going to crank up the heat under that. That's going to boil off a lot of the excess liquid and we're going to be left with like a thick kind of syrupy situation that kind of coats the spoon a little bit. If you taste it, you'll be like, "Ooh, that's really orangey," right? It's going to taste very tart and bright, and that's just what we want to have happen. So we're going to take that and we're going to add it to our cream. So now we've got all these different layers of flavor of orange that are layered up in our cream. We're going to heat it all up together, and we're going to pour it over our chocolate like we did. We're going to stir it in just like we did, and when you taste that, it's going to have a really delicious, nice orange flavor. Keep in mind also that when you make a flavored ganache, the flavor is going to increase when it's cooled. So it's going to taste more bold when it's colder. All right, so I think we have another couple of minutes, and if you have a moment, I'd like to talk with you how to do another flavor profile, because what I've just described is actually a formula, right? And it's plug and play. So I'm going to describe to you now how to do a raspberry flavored ganache, and I think you'll see the pattern and how you could develop your own flavor profile that might be pleasing for you. Okay, for raspberries, we're not going to use fresh raspberries. Why? Fresh berries, especially raspberries, have a lot of moisture content, so they're really not going to infuse the cream very well. The other thing they contain, fresh berries are notorious for containing bacteria, and so we don't want to infuse our cream with bacteria. So we're not going to use fresh berries, but we are going to use some freeze-dried raspberries. I don't know if y'all are familiar with freeze-dried fruits, but they're one of my favorite ingredients for a lot of things. They're readily available now in both Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, have their own like line of these, and most health food stores carry them as well. So the thing that's cool about freeze-dried fruits is they've had all of the moisture removed. About 95% of the moisture is removed, but it's not cooked at all. So the resultant product is very fresh and full of color and flavor. I'll show you what they look like. So these are some freeze-dried raspberries. They look just like regular raspberries, except they're crunchy like a cracker, right? They just shatter. So I'm going to take a bag of freeze-dried raspberries. I'm going to bring it home. I'm going to take about half of this, and I'm going to put it in a container with some Chambord or some raspberry eau de vie, some other type of raspberry liqueur, and I'm going to rehydrate them overnight. So I'm making a twofer, if you will. I'm taking my freeze-dried raspberries and I'm rehydrating them in some raspberry liqueur instead of water. So I'm getting an extra bang for my buck. The other half of my package, I'm going to take and put into my cream, cover it, put it in the fridge, just like we did with the orange rind, and that's going to infuse overnight as well. Okay, 24 hours later, we're ready to go. Take our cream out of the fridge, we strain it like we did, we squeeze the heck out of those berries that are soaking in there, really get all their flavor down into the cream, discard those. Now we have our mixture of the raspberries that have been soaked in the Chambord or raspberry eau de vie. And we're going to take some raspberry jam, just like we did before. We're going to mix those three together. So now we have a real raspberry concentrate going on. We're going to add that to our cream. Finally, when you're doing something like a raspberry that has a really tart flavor, it's not going to taste authentic unless it has some of that tartness, similar to what we tasted in the pomegranate truffle that you guys started the tasting with tonight. That has a real tartness, and the secret ingredient to those fruit-flavored truffles that are tart is a little vinegar. So I'm putting in some raspberry vinegar into this mix, a couple dashes instead of something like a bitters, and that's going to provide that punch through all the sweetness of the chocolate to give us that authenticity of the tartness of the raspberry. So we're going to heat all that up just like we did, pour it over our chocolate, taste it, and it's going to have a really delicious raspberry flavor. So that's how you do a plug and play. And just want to show you that our strawberries are kind of set up now. I'm going to pick this guy up. And the thing that I like about the ganache coated strawberries is when you bite them, the ganache is kind of yielding and soft, kind of like a berry. So they really marry well, and it really makes a nice combination. So it's something I hope you'll try. I do want to give you one caveat. Unless you have some strawberries in your fridge right now and you can try it on the ganache we just made, don't try and heat up your ganache. Say, oh, that sounds good. I want to make some chocolate covered strawberries. Don't try and heat up your ganache because it's an emulsion. If you heat it, it's going to break, right? It's going to not be pretty and you're not going to be happy. So if you do want to try making some chocolate covered strawberries or something like that, or one of the other things we mentioned that you can do with the liquid ganache, just make yourself a fresh batch. Okay?
Great. Well,
All
thanks,
right.
Ronnie Sue, for that. It was wonderful. Hope everybody learned how to make ganache and the different types of things that you can utilize it for. We just have a couple of slides left to kind of close this out, and go back to quick sharing my screen here. Hold on here.
While you're doing that, I just want to caution everyone, in order to save your truffles, if you're not going to eat them all tonight, just go ahead and put them into your box and either wrap it again in the saran wrap or put it into a Ziploc bag and store it in your fridge. You can keep it there for up to 2 weeks. Okay?
Wonderful. All right.
Great.
So some of the things that you've seen from Matt today around satellite insights and Ansible automation platform, we'd like to show how Crossvale can help enable you, depending where you're at in your journey. All right. So what we have what we call launch pads, right? So this is to help our customers enable, and we have a standard, advanced, and enterprise. And what that, depending on what functionality you're looking for, it kind of ranges. We just use this as a good conversation piece to start developing a statement of work for you. So you can see, depending on how advanced, and again, each of these build on one another. So enterprise encompasses advanced and standard. So talks a little bit about the deliverables and overview, and we have a rough duration on how long of a consulting engagement at the end of it. And you can see, by having satellite enabled with insights, you'll gain some quantifiable results. So we have launch pads for satellite. We also have a launch pad for automation. So coupling these together is very powerful, like we talked about. And lastly, we do assessments. So for instance, if you're, currently don't use satellite or smart management, you don't have a good plan for lifecycle management, provisioning, we can come in, we can do an assessment and basically kind of see where you're at today and where you want to go. And from that, we'll get a detailed plan for you. So we do a lot of statement of work assessments as well. And our last slide of the evening is, how can you partner with us? We talked about, we do assessments, we do statements of work. We also do a lot of proof of concepts. So if you want to try it before you buy it, we can come in and engage that way as well. So are there any questions? I'm going to stop presenting. Anybody have any comments or anything that we didn't answer that you were hoping to get out of this? All right. I would like to thank both Chocolatier Guru, Jonathan, and his father, Jeffrey, for the continued partnership, Ronnie Sue for the wonderful display of how to make ganache.
My pleasure.
And lastly, I'd like to thank Red Hat for the continued partnership. This, again, will be emailed out to the recording that we have, and also this slide deck. So again, thanks everyone for attending, taking time out of your busy day to join us. Matt, thanks for your time this evening to walk through the demo, and we greatly appreciate that. If there aren't any other questions, we'll, I see Travis is typing. Wait a second. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy
Thanks,
the rest
everybody.
of the evening. All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.